Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Golden Hour. My name is Matt Tullis.
And I'm Beth Moore.
And Beth, you have had a busy couple of days.
Yes.
It's been very golden offering-ish.
It has been. It has been so fun. We have been able to do dedications for 2 ultrasound machines that we have helped place, one in Fayetteville, one in McKenzie, and I have another one coming up in Hartsville. So those are all provided through the Golden Offering, and it's just been a lot of fun.
That was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Tell me about yesterday.
So yesterday I was in McKenzie. It was great to talk with some members at First Baptist who didn't realize that this is where some of our Golden Offering funds go. And then on Tuesday, Brother Randy and I both were with some folks in Fayetteville where one of our members of Forest Hills Baptist Church actually gave directly so that this ultrasound machine could be provided. And then we made up the difference with some Golden Offering.
That's awesome.
So,
Speaking of Dr. Davis.
Yes.
He's with us in the room.
He is.
Which is really rare because he does a lot.
Yeah, it's hard to catch him.
Everywhere.
Yes.
So, Dr. Davis, we're thankful for your leadership and thankful for this time that we have to be with you. And I thought maybe we would start with you just sharing what are some of the highlights of 2024.
Well, it's always good to be with you, Matt, and you, Beth. I really appreciate the way y'all are getting the God stories out there through this Golden Hour podcast. And a lot of highlights in 2024. There were some difficult days. Everybody always has difficult days in a 12-month period. I said goodbye to one of my dearest and longest friends. He had a brief battle with cancer. And to this day, Jeannie and I talk about all the time missing him. But there were a lot of highlights. And one of the greatest highlights was that the 2-year process, more than 2-year process, known as Acts 217 Initiative, came to a conclusion. And it set us on a brand new direction as a board. You know, for a decade, we focused on the 5 objectives, 5 very clear rocks that we focused on, organized our staff around, organized our budget around, organized everything we do around. And we during that 10-year period, we saw some really good success with some of that, some of it. We did not see what we would describe as numerical success, but I think we changed the conversation. For instance, like baptisms, people are talking about it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're really focused on people being saved, baptized, and set on the road to discipleship. And that is Great Commission work. I mean, that is the definition of Great Commission. So 2024 was, you know, another horrible moment in 2024 was the results of Hurricane Helene. Who would have thought that a hurricane coming ashore on the Gulf Coast would have such devastating effect in the Smoky Mountains and in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it really was horrible, all the way from the coast up to Ohio. And of course, here in Tennessee, we saw more than 500 homes on the Tennessee side of those mountains destroyed, more than 400 heavily damaged, and the loss of life. And when you see that destruction up close and personal, as I know Beth has, we were together with others on a tour over there soon after the destruction happened, and it was just really heartbreaking. Several of our churches, I think about a dozen of our churches, were either totally destroyed or heavily damaged by the floods, as well as all these families. But the high point related to that low point was the massive way in which Tennessee Baptists were mobilized in the initial response, and they're still there, and they're going to be there helping in days to come. So there were a good many high points to 2024. A low point was Alabama's horrible football season. But a high point was Tennessee beating Alabama again for all of our Vol fans.
That's right. That's right. Well, speaking of the floods, Brother Randy, and the response to that, tell us a little bit about Arise and Build.
Well, one of my favorite books on leadership is the book of Nehemiah.
Mm-hmm.
And Nehemiah had this vision God birthed in his heart. Nehemiah got the vision got Nehemiah. He got out of his comfort zone. He went back to Jerusalem to rebuild the walls that had been in rubble for 100 years. And he went back, and after a time of prayer and fasting and thinking and planning and being before the Lord, he finally cast his vision to some of the leaders in Jerusalem. And after hearing the vision, they said, "Let us arise and build." And after seeing the rubble, there's so many people wanting to help. We just kind of put a banner over it called Arise and Build. We are committed initially to help rebuilding 40 homes, but ultimately the people we're working with in Tennessee Baptist, restoring hundreds of homes,
Mm-hmm.
but rebuilding from scratch 200 homes or better. And we've had one meeting of a very large task force of everybody we're working with, pastors, directors of missions, disaster relief, people related to the governor's office of faith-based initiatives, Dollywood, the Dollywood Foundation there, and many others. And we've had one meeting with a very large group. We got another meeting in the morning at First Baptist Greenville, and I can't wait to hear all the God stories coming out of it. We've already seen many homes rebuilt that could be rebuilt, and we've completed one home, and we've got several others nearing completion, and we just, God's supplying the financial resources. It cost about $25,000 along with the grants already provided to rebuild a home. God's provided that in a remarkable way. But it takes about 2,000 man-hours to rebuild one of these homes. So I think we've got like 45 or 50 Tennessee Baptist churches that have adopted a family that's been affected by the storms. And these churches will be sending teams to help rebuild in the months ahead. And we're scheduling them now. And so if anybody involved in listening and watching this podcast wants to put together a team, if they don't have the $25,000, but they've got the people, we need the people.
Okay.
Right.
Particularly licensed electricians and plumbers. And then people know they got some building sense about them.
Right.
And if they've got the $25,000, but they say, you know what, we'll give the money or we'll raise the money, but we don't have the manpower, then we will match the dollars with the dudes and the dudettes that will be rebuilding the house.
Yeah.
So that's what Arise and Build. And it's not just, we had great disaster relief teams that were involved in mud outs and chainsaw crews and many other teams in those initial weeks and months after the floods. But like with Katrina, Tennessee Baptists are going to be there for the next few years.
Right.
And this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I can't wait to begin hearing those more of those God stories tomorrow when we get together.
That's great. We all know that one of the major signs of life is change, and change is a-coming. You've been telling us that ever since I've been here, because we're a lively group.
That's
so
right.
Changes. What changes do you see happening with the Tennessee Baptist Mission Board and the Tennessee Baptist Convention?
Well, Matt, you mentioned that change. We've got 4 core values here: relationships, innovation, stewardship, and excellence. And the core value of innovation implies change. We don't do change for change's sake, and we don't do change because we get bored with something. There are things we've been doing for 150 years that are legacy ministries that we will continue to do. Disaster relief isn't going anywhere. Compassion ministries isn't going anywhere. Planting churches beginning new churches, revitalization. Those kind of things are core to what we do. There are some things we're going to emphasize that are going to be brand new. Now, let me just back up and say a word about the process. This process of these new things we're going to be doing did not begin in a committee meeting in a boardroom here at the Church Support Center. 2 years ago, we went to Grassroots Tennessee Baptist, and we said, where are the pain points? We said, what are the needs you see that in your local context a group of churches could help meet? What are the opportunities that we as a large network of churches need to seize right now? And we just listened. And we had over 1,200 participate in the listening sessions held around the state. We had over 600 ministry leaders that participated in one or two surveys. And then we had teams. First of all, the task force of about 15 incredible Christ followers, Tennessee Baptist, that led in this process from the beginning. It was handed off to work groups, 10 or 11 work groups with somewhere between 10 and 13 Tennessee Baptist on each work group. And they helped redream the dream and craft this direction for us. They handed it off to us with affirming this direction at the Tennessee Baptist Convention in Murfreesboro this past November. Now we have to align our resources, our staff, and every resource we have to these new priorities. For instance, the ministry pipeline is kind of dry. There are 400 churches in Tennessee that do not have a pastor, and that's not an ambiguous number. You go through the list of 3,000 churches that are in our network. 400 of them are pastorless.
Wow.
And if there's a church with multi-staff, then you can just extend that on out. But I believe with all of my heart that God still calls people to full-time Christian service and ministry, whether it's a pastor, some other ministry leader, a missionary. And I'm very encouraged by what I'm seeing with young adults and university students. God's just stirring their hearts. But what is the path they take? Who are going to be their mentors? Who are going to be their coaches? Who are going to be the ones that come alongside? Our prayer is that through all of this change, and this is just one example, that we will have more resources to take these young Timothys and Tinas that are going into ministry, and we can help fund them spending 8 weeks during the summer with a healthy pastor or ministry leader. Or it may be a residency program where they spend a gap year on staff with somebody, and Tennessee Baptist will say, you go, you get a good experience, you learn all you can learn,
right,
and we're going to help pay your way.
That's great.
And so the staff has been very gracious. I think over the last 2 years, since 2022, we have seen about 13 or 14 positions that have had someone retire or they moved on to another ministry, and we've worked hard to keep those positions open so that we can bring on new help for this new season. And that has, this direction has resulted in the fact that we've had to say goodbye to a few of our staff, and that kind of thing is always always hurts, and you do everything you can to avoid that, but inevitably there may be some pain in change. But is the mission worth the pain, or do you stay in a comfort zone of continuing to do what you've always done and getting the results you've always gotten? Or do you say there are new opportunities that we've got to seize and we've got to do whatever it takes for the mission today.
Right.
Brother Randy, you mentioned that all of these changes were kind of adopted at the summit in November. Can you give any reflections or thoughts, highlights on this past year's summit?
Well, number one, we marked the 150th anniversary of our convention in Murfreesboro, where it all began.
Yeah.
And I think we did a good job all year long of celebrating that. I wore my 150th anniversary logoed sweater vest today. And I'm just really thankful for the work that everyone did in celebrating that. So we had a good celebration of that at the convention. There are always two or three things that stand out. One of them is the unity. I mean, Tennesseans like to get together. Tennesseans like to have fellowship. And we as Christ followers need fellowship. We really need to be with one another. And it's always good to hear that kind of buzz and to hear that kind of laughter and to see what happens when believers get together that hadn't seen each other. We need that. We're created for that kind of fellowship. Also, the Acts 2:17 initiative was adopted. You mentioned Forest Hill, Pastor Jay there. Hardwick is our president. He did a really good job presiding over the meeting and help us with this, bring to a conclusion this initiative. We had budget discussion that was very healthy. We had 2 proposals out there, and there was disagreement about which direction we should go with our budget. Either way was good. Both proposals were really, really strong. And one pastor wrote me a pretty lengthy email and said he's never been prouder to be a Tennessee Baptist because the manner in which Tennessee Baptists conducted their business, it was respectful, it was thoughtful. People had an opportunity to have their say. And that, to me, is a highlight of what happened at this year's convention.
When you think about 150 years of Tennessee Baptists, I know you're originally from Alabama. I'm from Louisiana. We only have one native Tennessean in this room.
Proud of
right? I think, Colby, you're Louisiana too. So even our engineer. As you think about Tennessee Baptists, and I know we've reflected back on our past, what are some of the stories or people that inspire you to continue to carry the torch for Tennessee Baptists?
Wow. The type of people that inspire me are the folks that are serving the Lord all across our state. My correspondence this morning was, I mentioned I was a little late coming in here because of a correspondence I wanted to finish, was with a WMU leader at one of our churches here in Middle Tennessee. And just the engagement with her has inspired me and helped me. This afternoon, on my way to East Tennessee for that meeting tomorrow morning with the Horizon Bill Task Force, I'm stopping in Cookeville to visit with one of our pastors there that has inspired me during the 15 years I've been here. We've had a growing relationship. I count him a dear friend, and he wanted to want me to stop by and talk shop a little bit.
Wow.
So the people that inspire me are folks that are on the front lines. My job is to be a water boy. My job is to do all I can to take these mission dollars that are generously given and make sure that wisely and in good stewardship they are deployed to their best use. And so they're laymen. I think of one of our laymen in West Tennessee, and he had a great career in a certain profession. But you can tell right now the calling of God on his life in his retirement years is to be an encouragement to ministry leaders, to pastors. And so those are the kind of people that continue to inspire me. Tennessee Baptists are an inspiring group of people.
Yeah, they really are.
So we just celebrated 150 years of Tennessee Baptist, but we're looking ahead this year to celebrating 100 years of the Cooperative Program. I'd love to hear any of your thoughts on that.
Well, in a nutshell, the Cooperative Program started in Memphis when the Southern Baptist Convention met in Memphis in 1925, and it has been a remarkable thing. Just a few months ago, Tennessee Baptist reached the mark of $1.5 billion given
Wow.
during this last 100 years, and that's just in Tennessee. All of us in this room right now have been blessed by and benefited by the Cooperative Program. I think it is still a simple missions mutual fund that touches so many lives. David Platt, while he was president at the IMB, talked about he had a growing appreciation for the Southern Baptist ecosystem. And that ecosystem is supported by Cooperative Program dollars. And whether it is a BCM student at one of our Tennessee universities getting their first taste of missions, or whether it is an IMB missionary that has been serving on the field for decades, a college student at Union or Carson Newman, ministry people that work out of this building and in the field on behalf of the Tennessee Baptist Mission Board, the associations across our state. Cooperative Program dollars touches all of that and so much more.
Well, we sure appreciate your leadership. We want you to keep taking your vitamins. We look forward to celebrating your 50th anniversary as our executive director one day. But thank you so much.
That's really funny, but I appreciate that very much, Matt, and appreciate what y'all do, and let's just move forward together.